Alright, so now that we have our basic structure set up, today we're going to look at how to use floats in order to create a 4-column section to our page. Pretty much right after the body, we're going to create a 4-section column here where we can have 4 different spaces for content. So where we're going to start is we're going to start on our style sheet, and this time we're actually going to hand code the style sheet. We're going to start right after the footer, make a new line, hashtag, and we're going to call these 4 pieces index boxes. So we're actually going to say index box 1. Okay, we're going to do a bracket, go to the next line, we're going to set a width, and we're going to make that width 25%. Make sure you close that off. Next line, we're going to set a background color, and notice that I am using the footer to guide me. I'm watching what I used in the footer to guide me through what I'm going to need in this one. As soon as you bring up this hashtag, it'll bring up a color picker. I'm going to use green since I haven't used that yet. Close it off. Set a height. We're just going to make this 100 pixels. Close it off. And for our float, this one is going to float left. And then we need to go to the next line and make sure that we close the entire style off as well. Okay. Now we're going to go in here and we're just going to copy and paste this entire thing. And notice this is 25% width. We're going to make 4 columns. So we're going to have 4 index boxes side by side at 25% apiece. So we can simply copy and paste this. And we're going to change this to index box 2, index box 3, and index box 4. At 25% apiece, they're going to fill up to 100%. And that's kind of the gist of this. Okay. Now, one thing I need to do before I go on is, if you remember, we had created a float for our sidebar and our body. One thing we need to look at is how to clear a float. Essentially, here's what happens. This sidebar is floating to the left, this body floats to the right, and then that float does not stop. You have to physically, in your code, tell it to clear all the floats. This footer looks okay because it's floating to the left, because I told it to float to the left. Alright, but technically we should have cleared the floats altogether in order to prevent any kind of catastrophe with our code. And I can show you what that would look like. So let's do this. Let's leave this like it is, and we'll go ahead and throw in the index boxes. We're going to go straight under our body code, copy and paste this because that'd be the easiest thing to do. Call this index box 1. We're going to copy and paste this 3 times. Make it 2, 3, 4, and we'll see what happens when we have not cleared the floats. As you can see, I've got all 4 of the index boxes, but they're not aligned the way that I want them to align. They're all floating to the same direction. So it's an easy fix. What I'm going to do is jump into my styles. I'm going to go right above my index box 1 just to keep everything straight. And I'm going to create a new style called clear. And the only thing that this is going to be used for is to clear both floats. That's what this entire code is used for, is to clear floats. And I'm going to clear both the left and the right floats. And I'm going to close that off. Now I have an entire ID dedicated to clearing my floats, meaning turning them both off. So to explain that again, I'm floating a sidebar to the left, a body to the right, and I never turned it off. So I'm going to come here and create a style that's going to turn off both of those floats so I can start fresh with new floats on my index boxes. So I'm going to come to my source code, go right above my index box 1, and I'm simply going to enter in my clear div ID. And there we have it. We've cleared the floats right here, and then we set up whole new floats on the next line. 25% to the left, 25% left float, 25% left float, 25% left float, and it all fits perfect. Okay. The next thing we're going to take a look at is how to set margins. We can actually jump in here and we can create padding in between these sections, or margins in between these sections, to space them off. You might want to look at doing this. It's a little bit extra work, but it can create a more clean and organized look for your page. And we're only going to practice with it with these index boxes just to save time. So we're going to create margins in between these index boxes to kind of make it look cleaned up a little bit more. So to do this, we're going to jump on our styles, and to keep it simple, we won't be hand coding these margins. So we'll jump over here in our CSS designer, because we're not going to hand code these, like I said. Come on down to index box 1. We could hand code these, but I just want to keep it simple because I want to show you some other things. Now, you might have this checkbox checked called show set. What it does is it only shows the properties that you have set so far. So we've only set width, height, float, background color. I'm going to uncheck this box, and we're going to come down. This shows you every option you could possibly have now. And I'm going to come here, I'm going to show you margin and padding. Now here's the difference between margins and paddings. Margins is going to set space or empty space on the sides, tops, and bottoms of your divs or whatever you're dealing with. So if I set a 5 pixel left and right margin on my index box 1, you'll notice that it's added 5 pixels of gray area on the left and right of this index box. Okay, and I can also do that for the top and the bottom if I wanted to. I'm going to go ahead and take those off. Now padding does the opposite. Padding will actually create, and I'll put this one at 25 pixels so you can see it better. So this is index box 1, it's going to be this one. Let's watch what happens when I add a 25 pixel padding to it. You'll notice it's actually growing. So it's adding extra space from the container, from the div on the left and right side. So this actually grew by 50 pixels on the left and right side. Okay, so technically padding is talking about the area inside, so it grows the inside of the shape. Margins is going to squeeze it from the outside. For what we're going to want to do, we're just going to add a margin. So we'll come here to index box 1, make sure we're in number 1, and scroll down to margins. And we're going to add a 5 pixel margin on all sides. Instead of doing this one at a time, we can do all sides by clicking in this box here, and 5px, hit enter, and now we've added a 5 pixel margin. Okay. From here on, you can do this in the CSS designer, or you can actually see where the code came up here, a 5 pixel margin. I'm just going to copy and paste this in each of my index boxes because that's faster. And click up here to refresh it, and you'll notice that I've gone out of space. My index box 4 has gone to the next line. That's not what I want. Here's what happened. When I added a 5 pixel margin to all the sides, the left and the right, that means I added an extra 5 pixels here, an extra 10 pixels here, 10 pixels here, here, and another 5 here. So technically I added a total of 40 pixels to that line. Now if we take our calculator And we know that we started with 940 pixels as our wrapper width. If we divide that by 4, that means we have 235 pixels to work with for each index box. Okay? If we added a 5 pixel margin to each side, left and right, that's a total of 10 pixels that we added to that width. So what we have to do is subtract those margins from the total. So we're going to subtract 10 pixels from that 235. That means we have 225 pixels remaining to work with for each index box. So we're going to take this 225 and replace our 25% width with 225. This will give each index box a 225 pixel width with a 5 pixel margin on the left and right, giving it a total width or total space that it takes up of 235 pixels. And after that, that should add up to 940 pixels total for our line, and allowing us to keep all 4 on that line. And there we go. That's how you create a 4-column span space where you can put different content. So we could add, some links here, some text here, an image in one of these, whatever it is that we wanted to do from there. Going in, and we'll go ahead and we'll preview this in our browser. So File, Preview in Browser, onto Google Chrome. We'll save everything. And I've got my browser zoomed out, so we'll zoom that in here. And here we see my page set up.